Hey, hello everyone. Let's wait a couple of minutes while people are joining. I see 6 people connected. Yeah, say hello in the chat if everything is working correctly on your side, if my sound is fine, if you can see my screen. We have Romain Gautier from Jahia here as a steward and moderator for the chat. Thank you, Romain, for joining. Okay, hello everyone. I see 7 people connected. Looking great. Okay, while we wait for people to join, let me say a few things first. We are here for 30 minutes, roughly 25 minutes of slideshows and 5 minutes for your question. And we have a couple of polls for you to answer during this webinar. Let me start the first one to ask you about the state of your design system implementation. You have 5 options. You can see the poll in the polls tab. And your 5 options are at the question, what's your current implementation step? We are evaluating our options. A design system is in development. The design system is ready, not yet integrated. The design system integration is in progress. And final and last option, the design system is fully integrated. If that's the case, congratulations. Okay, we have 1 vote for no. Oh, yeah. Great point from Romain. This webinar is in English, but all giants are French speakers. So you can ask your questions in French and we will translate them in English for the whole audience. Or the other way around, if there is something you don't understand in English, we can translate sentences here and there for you. Okay. How is it looking? Okay, we are waiting for a few more people before we begin. I'm currently live streaming from an oven, so please bear with me during this webinar. Okay, 10 people, let's start. And this live stream is also available as a replay with the exact same link you used, so you can send the link afterwards to other people. So thank you all for attending this webinar entitled Your Design System in Jahia, a webinar whose subject you voted for in majority a few months ago. A few words on myself real quick. I'm Gautier Ben Aïm, developer advocate at Jahia, and this is my first solo webinar. I'm pretty thrilled to be here with you today, and I'm doing a second webinar next week on Thursday about agentic development. You can find a link in the chat to register, and you can also find a link next to the one you clicked in the product newsletter. You can register to the product newsletter, Jahia product newsletter on the Academy, and we don't spam you. We send a mail. We send about 4 mails per year. So that's the best way to be informed of new features and new events from the Jahia team. And without further ado, let's jump right in. Okay, what will we see today? This webinar is in 4 parts. We'll start with an HTML, CSS versus React design system comparison. Then we will talk about requirements to share with the design system team. Our third section is about using a design system in Jahia. And to conclude this webinar, we will talk about exposing a design system to editors. And what might be the most important takeaway of this webinar, especially for team managers, a design system is a product for developers. Building a product without talking to its users will fail. you need to coordinate meetings between the design system team and the integration team for things to go smoothly. That's the biggest recommendation we can make in this webinar. Okay, let me consult. Okay, so 2 answers for the design system integration is in progress. One for we are evaluating our options, and for people who answered that, this is for you, HTML, CSS versus React design systems. Both have their strengths and weaknesses. So in case you haven't made your mind yet, let's compare them both. HTML and CSS have the pro of being known by all web developers. And since HTML and CSS are the foundational languages of web development, they are compatible with everything: React, JSP, PHP, Angular, Vue, you name it. And picking HTML, CSS to begin with is not a bad option. You are not stuck with it. You can evolve it into a React design system. On the other hand, React provides better type safety and autocomplete, what we usually call the developer experience. It's also better suited for heavily interactive UIs. For instance, if you have charts in your design system, well, you have to pick React for that. However, HTML, CSS is not without its inconveniences. First and foremost, it's very verbose. And yeah, because it's verbose, only CSS is updatable. HTML lives in consumer projects. You can update CSS after it was integrated, but you cannot update the HTML. A few words on that later. And the biggest drawbacks of React are its learning curves, plural, because React is both a language, but also comes with an ecosystem of tools that you need to learn and to understand to be able to use it correctly. Both types of design systems can be used in Jahia. JS modules are compatible with HTML, CSS, and React design systems. However, JSP is only compatible with HTML, CSS design systems. So that might settle the debate if you are currently having a Jahia project in JSP only. Jahia is the only head-on traditional CMS that can render React components on the server. Okay, this is the end of this first section. Anything in chat, anything in polls? Not yet. So let me close this first poll to start a new one. Okay. Publish poll. Okay, you now have another poll to answer about the technologies behind your design system stack. And depending on your answers, I will try to slightly adjust the time spent on the following slides. So either you don't have a design system, you pick HTML, CSS, and something else, or React and something else. So that's your options. We should have at least 3 answers. We should have at least 3 answers. Okay, requirements to share with the design system team. Well, what components should a design system contain? Well, the atomic design methodology, which is not the only methodology available, but it is one of the most popular, defines 3 levels of components. First level, atoms are the smallest building block of a design system. For instance, a tag. A tag cannot be broken down into smaller pieces, so that's why it's an atom. Then you have molecules. They compose atoms to create a single functional unit. For instance, a list of tags, a component named tag list, well, it lists tags. And then you have organisms. They compose molecules to create an interface to solve a business problem, like a blog post component. Integrators will always end up creating organisms to build useful interfaces. Therefore, if you want to enforce consistency and reduce duplication, you need to provide and document organisms in your design system. And it's also common for design systems to overlook components such as sectioning and layout components. They belong in a design system. Okay, second requirement, and probably the most complex one of this webinar, CSS and the way to package it. React is intentionally unopinionated about CSS. It gives you 2 options. The first one, so from a design system perspective, is to produce CSS at build time. Your design system compiles all styles into a single CSS file at build time from your components code. Then from this CSS file, well, you get two things. The first one is you can consume it without any configuration. It's plain CSS, you just import it. And the second one is that the styling technology is an implementation detail and can change without your consumers noticing. For instance, what you can do is start with an HTML CSS design system, then migrate to React with global CSS, and then migrate from CSS to CSS modules. Well, that migration can be made fully transparent for consumers. Your other option is to produce CSS during consumption, for instance, with technologies such as CSS in JS or Tailwind. And you tell me that you go for HTML CSS preprocessor or HTML CSS. Okay, we don't have any React design systems. Well, let me tell you a bit about it in case some people in the replay are wondering. Well, these technologies, Tailwind, CSS and JS, etc., make the design system take choices become the consumer's constraints. Your technology choices are forced onto consumers. For instance, if your components are styled with Tailwind, well, then you must have a working Tailwind in your Jahia project. And to go further, some technologies might be incompatible with Jahia JS modules if they require injecting injecting into the server runtime. Not all CSS in JS technologies are supported by Jahia. Both options are valid. However, the first one is always a valid option. It always works. The second one works better if design system and integration are done by the same people. For instance, that's what we do in Lux. Lux, our fictional real estate agency used during demos, is a Jahia website built with JavaScript modules with an external design system. Well, the external design system produces CSS during consumption and not during build. It's a build-less design system. Since it's a really complicated matter, well, you can book a free 30-minute session with me. Let me share the link with you real quick. Okay, yeah. You can book a slot in my calendar to discuss this issue. And it might be relevant to invite both the integration team and the design system team to discuss everything and to make sure nothing is left out. Okay, third and last requirement to share. Configuration versus composition. Let's illustrate. Oh, yeah, thank you, Romain, for a link to Lux code if you want to see what a design system, an external design system in React looks like. Well, let's illustrate this debate with a concrete example, a blog post. Yeah, my blog post here has a title, a body, some tags, and a publication date. It's a simple blog post. Well, it will be implemented in my design system using an organism, but I have two options. The first one is configuration. In following the configuration pattern, components expose props to populate themselves. Here, my title is forwarded to the title prop. When using composition, my component expose a unique entry point, children in React, and trust the developers to use it correctly. Here, my title is forwarded to my blog post organism through its children props as a title element, title HTML element, but could be a title component if you want to do so. Well, what are the implications? Well, when following the configuration pattern, the design system team fully controls the appearance of what is rendered in the CMS. Integrators must advocate for their editor needs. Indeed, the design system team is never fully aware of what editors need and how they consume the design system through Jahia, through components. Well, integrators must advocate for their editors. When following the composition pattern, the integration team has more flexibility to adapt the organisms to the needs of their editors. For instance, say for SEO reasons that the tag list must appear above the fold, so right below the title, between the title and the body. Well, when using composition, the integration team has some flexibility to adapt the organisms to the very needs of their editors. If the design system is built following the configuration pattern, the design system team must update the blog post organism to follow the actual need of the editors. Okay, another example. Let's take a sip of water. Yes, but let's take a footer component. My footer component here has two children, left call and right call, of type example footer column. To render my footer, I instantiate my footer with two props, left call and right call, from the GCR child node. Well, it works. Editors can use it. However, when using the composition pattern, I can declare that my footer here takes an indefinite number of children of type footer column, make these children orderable, and then simply render all the footer columns directly into the footer component. It works better because now editors can easily reorder columns. That's cool. But also, if, for instance, a third column is added to the footer, well, you'll see here that that the composition pattern evolves better in time. There are minimal changes to render a third column. However, if I need a third column in my configurable footer, well, I will name it middle call. And what about a fourth column? Then left call, middle call, right call. I will turn these props into an array of columns. Well, it does not evolve as well as composition. Composition is more flexible and also stands the test of time better. Okay, one thing to notice, which are actually two of the same things, the configuration pattern is easily buildable on top of the composition pattern, and HTML CSS design system are always based on the composition pattern. And well, since React is an abstraction on top of HTML CSS, and HTML CSS is always composable, well, then React can be both configurable and composable on top of composable. Okay. Last section, third section of this webinar, using a design system in Jahia. Let's start with HTML and CSS. Two examples of HTML CSS design systems that work well and are pretty popular and work well in Jahia. Bootstrap, probably the most popular one, but also the French government design system, DSFR. Well, both of these design systems are HTML CSS design systems. To use them, the first step is to link the CSS and JS resources in the template set, like that. This is React/JavaScript syntax, but it also works with a pretty similar syntax in JSP. So you import your CSS file and then you reference your JS file with an add resources tag, which has the same name in JSP. And the second step is to use the CSS classes in the view, like for callout, fr callout. And here you notice what I said previously. The design system may be updated in the future, but once the classes are used and the HTML is used and set in stone or somewhat, well, you cannot update the HTML of the integration without updating the integration. However, you can still update CSS. So that's what I meant by telling you that you can update CSS of an HTML CSS design system, but you cannot update the HTML. And that's it. That's how you'd consume an HTML design system. Using a React design system in Jahia is pretty similar to what you do with other JavaScript libraries. You import it from your externally packaged design system, you import your footer component, and then you can use your component within server views. For CSS, however, it might be slightly more complex. If the design system ships as a single CSS file, simplest option, you import your design system CSS once in the project, and that's it. However, if your design system is built using another technology, Well, it may work out of the box thanks to Vite. For instance, if you use CSS modules, it may work out of the box thanks to the library itself. For instance, if you use emotion/styled, or it may require a Vite plugin like Tailwind. Jahia uses React as a template engine for server-side rendering. By default, Jahia ships 0 bytes of JavaScript to the browser. That means that if you have interactive components, well, they require an explicit bridge to be made interactive on the client. The island component, named after the island architecture pattern on which we have a blog article. You can Google island architecture Jahia and you'll find it. Well, how to use this island component? Instead of having a single server.tsx file, your view, you also have a client file that will act as a bridge. You import your accordion. I took an accordion as an example. An accordion is a component that opens when clicked and contracts when clicked a second time. Well, you import your accordion from your design system. You instantiate, thank you, Romain, for the link in the chat. You instantiate it in your in an intermediate component. You can name it accordion client here. And instead of importing your accordion directly in your server view, you import your bridge. You also import your island, the island component from the JavaScript modules library. And then within your server view, well, you instantiate the island component with your accordion client bridge, and you forward the props like this. They will be serialized and sent to the client from here to here. Okay, and that is all I have for you in this third section. And let's go to the fourth and last section, exposing a design system to editors. Let me state again, this once again, a design system is for developers, not editors. Therefore, you have certain rules for your design system to be properly consumed. The first one is to never expose atoms. Here we have an example from the French design system, French government design system, the tag atom. Well, see the props here, label, size, type, as icon. Well, these props do not make sense for an editor. They can be confusing, and your editors can create bad pages with this component. It can be a mess. So never expose atoms. However, you can start exposing molecules in the context where they can be created. For instance, a footer column can be created in the page footer. And last category, you can expose organisms as independent components. However, do not make all molecules and organisms droppable on Call It a Day. It will drown editors. Not all organisms are useful to editors. For instance, if you have a page header, well, it might be fully generated from the page title and the site tree. So editors should not be able to create it. If the design system does not contain organisms, that's fine. You build them in Jahia using molecules, and you only expose those organisms you built. And this was our last piece of recommendation we have for you. Thank you all for attending. It's time to answer your question. And we have a first question from Romain. Is it safe to say that a button is okay to expose as a child of a component, but not necessarily as a droppable content? Yeah, exactly that. For instance, if you have, say, a card component, well, you can allow editors to create one or many CTAs, one or many call to actions within that card using this pattern I showed you. Yeah, this one. So it's pretty similar to that. You can use this pattern to create as many CTAs as you want in a card, but you don't want your button, a CTA, to be created anywhere in the page. So that's an exact case of, this is a precise example for this recommendation. Okay, do we have other questions? Have you all answered to Paul's? I guess so. Thank you for answering. Maybe for independent integrators, that does not make sense to tell us about one specific design system. Yeah, pretty sure Gautier is ready. Absolutely. you might have questions in the future, and that's entirely fine, especially if you hit roadblocks during the implementation. In that case, you can send me an email, or send Romain an email, or send anyone actually at Jahia an email, and then book a 30-minute slot in my calendar, so we can discuss about that. Make sure you are not stuck because of something Jahia does poorly, and yeah. Little summary. Okay, little summary from Romain. Challenges of integrating a design system. If HTML, CSS, how to sync the changes in HTML structure between design system and CSS components. Indeed. Your design system and the integration might lag if they are done concurrently. In React, you have many challenges. The biggest one is about CSS, but you can also have design concerns, configuration versus composition. And your last challenge is to ensure that the design system team takes authoring experience into account, include sections, layout components, give more flexibility via composition. Yeah. One thing I have not told you about here is that we recommend you make the design system not too strict, and obviously the edition interface is not too messy. And for that, the right people to call to help find balance is integrators. They are the right people to help you balance messiness and strictness during the implementation of both the design system and the integration. Okay, anything else? Oh, last one. Does Jahia recommend CSS technology for the design system, or is Jahia incompatible with some CSS technologies? We recommend CSS modules because we know by experience that they scale well. You can take a look at surveys such as State of React, and CSS modules are have the biggest consistency and positivity rates. We do support Tailwind without any issue, and we do support some CSS in JS options such as emotion styled, Panda, vanilla extract. We do not support styled components. That's the biggest non-supported CSS in JS option, because it requires a server runtime to work, whereas all the others do not, and they can be used in any JS runtime. Okay. Do we have anything else? Romain is still typing, so I'll be waiting for him. But if we are... Oh, no. If we are done, please take a few seconds to register to the next webinar next week about agentic development, AI, and similar. You might also want to subscribe to the Jahia product newsletter if you haven't already. And that's pretty much it. Thank you all once again for attending, and have a great day, if possible, night maybe. And thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mohamed. Okay, bye everyone. See you.